Okay. So let us carry on with some of the questions. So we have some questions left over from yesterday. So I'm going to do those first of all, and then we will get on to today's questions afterwards. So we'll see how it goes. Actually, before we do that, are there any questions about this last session, first of all, that anyone would like to ask that are not in the box? Is everyone is okay? Bobby? Okay, one over here. Okay. Sure.
Thank you. I'm just referring to AN 3.45, and I'm just asking for clarification. When one takes care of their mother and father selflessly, okay? Selflessly,
Yep.
right? That means they sacrifice their time and full time taking care of their mother, okay? In another instance, say for example a mother, all right, in I think somewhere AN something, where the mother is in charge of the household, where the mother takes care, sacrifice her time, her career to take care of the children selflessly. Is these two instances, Ajahn, is considered a generosity? Or is it considered a duty? I think it's considered a generosity.
It's both. It's probably both, right? You cannot necessarily always categorize things at one or the other. I would say it's often both. So of course, if you have children, you have a certain duty. You have to look after them. You can't just put them on the street and look after themselves. That wouldn't be right. But you can also make something more out of it, so it becomes generosity.
My this question is because I was thinking, for people who actually takes care of their mother and their parents selflessly, right, 24/7. Actually, I've seen that. So I'm just wondering, when they go into, the part where you explain that when we think about generosity and you have the raptures of joy, and then the joy, affects your body tranquil and all that, then you become able to lead to meditation. So I'm wondering, is there something that can be said about that to help someone in that way, to look at it that way, so that they can go into meditation?
Sure, the difference between duty and generosity is really just in the attitude that we have. So it's about having the right kind of attitude. So in one sense it is a duty, but if you have the right attitude, you can make it into generosity. So okay, I have to look after my old mum or whatever it is. How can I do that in a way so that it becomes very loving and caring and generous? You can do it as a duty, and it can be very superficial and not very nice. Or you can put your heart into it and make something really out of it. And that is the difference between duty and generosity. So it's up to you to make something out of it. And the more you make out of it, the more you make it into a spiritual practice, the more powerful it becomes in meditation later on. Because if you remember that, I really tried so hard to do the right thing and to put love and care into it, you really feel good about it afterwards. So there isn't a difference between obligation and generosity. They're just, they're the same thing. It's just slightly different attitudes, maybe. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, great. So let's have a look at the questions from yesterday. So, dear Ajahn, you advised us to reduce our sense of self gradually so that we can reduce our attachments to the five sense world. When I'm stuck overthinking about I, me, and myself, how can I reduce the sense of self to be more curious about how life will unfold and worry less? Thank you. The overcoming of the sense of self is a very gradual thing, and the best way to do it is very often simply to live the Noble Eightfold Path. By living the Noble Eightfold Path, your sense of self will automatically be reduced. The idea of generosity is part of the path. That reduces your sense of self because you're giving up of what is yours. By living according to kindness and precepts, you are reducing your sense of self, because the breaking of the precepts is very often a selfish thing. And when you live morally, you are actually less selfish. And so you're giving up the sense of self. When you are giving up anger and negativity and excessive desires, you are giving up a sense of self, because a sense of self is what gets upset, and the ego is what has ill will towards others because they treat you badly or whatever. So the whole practice of the path is a practice of giving up the sense of self. It happens automatically. It's a consequence of the path. So this is one way to do it. And this is kind of maybe the easiest way to think about this. You can also contemplate the sense of self. You can understand that, if you have too many desires and attachments, and if you have too much of an ego, you become very vulnerable, and all of these kind of things. And you can also reflect in that way, and that will also be helpful in reducing the sense of self. But the whole path is really a path that reduces this automatically. So live the path with maximum integrity, and as you do that, you will see your sense of self gradually reducing, going down, 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 and you become more at ease in the world. When there's less sense of self, you're more at ease. There's less barrier between you and others, because sense of self also creates barriers. I am here, you are there. There's a difference between us, and that cannot be easily overcome as long as there is a big sense of self. So that is my main recommendation on that one. Well, is that same handwriting? I think same handwriting. Okay, I'm going to do another one first of all. So, dear Ajahn, if having good companions is the whole point of the spiritual life, what can we say about the hermit's way of life? So, it's a good question. So I like this kind of question. It's a good question. So, the point of good companions is to give you right view, to give you the right kind of direction with your life, so you know what you have to do. Once you have that right direction, then you are kind of independent, So once you know what you have to do, then you practice that. And then after a while, maybe you get stuck again, and then you go back and you go to the spiritual companion, you ask for advice, and then you go back and practice more. And in this way, you gradually elevate your mind. So in the beginning of the path, spiritual companionship is very important, because you need a lot of advice and understanding to get yourself on track. As you learn, you need less of those spiritual companions. You need them a little bit to inspire you, to get you on the right track, to ask questions if you have problems, but you need it less. When you are ready to be a hermit, you're only ready when your samadhi is fully together. When your samadhi is fully together, you are largely independent, because you have almost come to the end of the path already. And then that hermitness, you stay there. But if you have problems as a hermit, what do? You go to your spiritual companions to ask questions again, to find the way forward. So there is a balance here between those two things. Hermit life should only be lived once you are independent, your samadhi is going well. And even then, there is a degree to which you rely on the spiritual companions. That's kind of the way to think about this. So think about it, that kind of balance. Ajahn, may I know what is making an aspiration? How do we make aspirations? Is making aspiration the same as expecting something in return? Some people, when offering dana, they make an aspiration to be reborn in a good destination. Is it a wholesome practice? Thank you. So, I am not sure whether making aspiration is such a good idea. Very often there's too much desire and craving going with that. You want to achieve something. So it depends, I suppose, a bit on your character. If you make an aspiration like a New Year's aspiration to, or commitment to live better, often these things don't really work out. The most important thing is to make a simple aspiration, like I'm going to make an aspiration to be more kind. And if you have that kind of aspiration and you really live that way, then you're going to go a long way. It's going to be very successful for you in your spiritual life. So have an aspiration, make it very simple. To make an aspiration to be reborn in a good destination, you don't need to make that aspiration because it's already made. You already have that aspiration. Everyone has that aspiration. Of course you want to be reborn in a good destination. It's just part of what it means to be human. So you don't need to aspire for that. It's automatic. Yeah, it's going to happen anyway. Everyone wants to be happy. Only if you want suffering do you have to make an aspiration. But that's not going to happen anyway. So I would say don't keep a simple aspiration like being kind, and that is really, to my mind, the best way forward. Sometimes what happens is that if you make an aspiration, very often you can't do it because it's just too hard. So often we don't know what is an appropriate aspiration for us. I make the aspiration of attaining the first jhana. You can't. You don't know whether you're going to be able to do it, and so it kind of doesn't make any sense. Very often we don't know what is appropriate, and so because of that, it can be very problematic to make aspirations. I make an aspiration to drink more coffee. That's an easy one. I can do that one. Drink less coffee. Is that a good idea? Okay, wow, maybe you're right. Okay, I'm actually already going down already. So. Dear Ajahn, an awakened person is considered out from samsara. Where is the consciousness of the awakened person? After death, if he or she is also not placed in one of the 31 planes of existence. Well, first of all, the awakened person is the arahant, and they are still alive. And when they are still alive, obviously they still have a consciousness. They are right here. Wow, very exciting music over there. So the consciousness of the awakened person, because they are still alive, it is still here, yeah? When the person dies, the awakened person dies, what happens to their consciousness? Well, after they die, then all suffering comes to an end, yeah? So what does that mean, all suffering comes to an end? Well, if you have consciousness, you still have suffering. Yeah, this is the whole point. The Panchaparana Kanda Dukkha, the 5 Sankitena, Panchaparana Kanda Dukkha, the 5 aggregates of grasping are suffering. And one of those aggregates is consciousness. So if you have consciousness, you are suffering. So if you want to give up suffering, you have to give up consciousness. That's what so do you want to suffer or not? That's the question. If you don't want to suffer, you have to let go of consciousness. So often we think about these things in the wrong way. And one of the reasons people are so concerned about this kind of issue is because of the sense of self. That is why we are concerned about it. But if you understand that it's just dukkha arising and dukkha passing away, then you're very happy to give it up. It's hard to give up something if you think it's you, but when you understand it's no longer you, it's okay. The Buddha has this beautiful simile in the suttas. He says that the 5 aggregates of grasping, they are like the sticks and leaves in the Gosinga grove. The Gosinga grove is one of these beautiful forest groves. And the Buddha says, well, if someone were to collect all the sticks and the leaves in this forest grove called the Gosinga grove and do with them as they please, burn them or throw them away or whatever, would you be concerned? And the monk said, of course not, it's not ours, it's just grass and leaves. Who cares about what happens to grass and leaves? Well, the Buddha says, your 5 khandhas are just like that. They're just like the grass and leaves in the Gosinga grove. They're not yours. Doesn't matter what happened to them. That is kind of the idea of consciousness, right? It's not yours. It is just dukkha arising, dukkha passing away. So you throw it out. You're no longer interested in it. That's what how the Dhamma works. This is also why it's profound. And it goes very strongly against the grain because of these sort of teachings. Dear Ajahn, can you share more the right set of criteria for being helpful? I try my best to be helpful and protect my boundaries, yet my boss gave me feedback to be more proactive and helpful. How do I keep faith that I am practicing right conduct and not to take external feedback too seriously? these are just worldly things as well. To be more helpful, in the company situation, that is kind of different. But if you are able to somehow join the Dhamma with the company situation, and so maybe that is the feedback from your boss, and if the boss has maybe what the boss is saying is somehow joinable with Dhamma. Yeah, you can be more helpful. If you can, it's great. It's going to help your Dhamma practice. So see if you can kind of bring the two together. However, if you feel that it is too much or whatever, then don't do it. Don't be more helpful. I don't know what to say. Maybe your boss is going to come to me and complain to me and say, "What? What are you saying? This is bad idea." But see if you can join these together. Or maybe your boss is simply wrong. I don't know what kind of boss you have. Maybe your boss is at fault, and maybe you are right. And if you are at right and your boss is at fault, then don't follow the advice of your boss. Do what is appropriate in your situation. Try to kind of look at it from different angles. Ask someone you trust what is the right thing to do in this situation. Ask a fellow employee, maybe someone you trust, someone who's close to you. Try to kind of dig into the situation a bit more to find out what is happening here. But if you are able to be more helpful and kind in a good way that aligns with the Dhamma, it will be beneficial for you and also for the company. Both will gain from this. So see if you can find the kind of a middle way forward. Hi Ajahn, I feel I may have been conditioned since young not to trouble others. And as a result, I fear offending people and tend to avoid conflict, probably developed people-pleasing tendencies. This creates stress for me when with friends and even family. Is this rooted in ego? How can I overcome this? Also to be more brave. I think most people are people pleasers. This is kind of we all, because we want to be liked, we want to fit in, we want to be part of the community, and because we need that, we need social relationships, we will be people pleasers to some extent. It's unavoidable. And that's okay. It's all right to be a little bit people pleasing. But it shouldn't go too far. It shouldn't go to the point where you suffer as a consequence of the people pleasing. You're too afraid of not being accepted or whatever. So one of the best ways to overcome that is to practice in a good way. One of the things that the Dhamma does to you is gives you independence. If you are strong within because you practice the Dhamma, you rely less on people outside, you're going to be less concerned whether they like you or not. You not become a people pleaser. You know that you are doing the right thing because it is right, because you feel good about it, because when you are kind, it actually lifts you up, and you know it is right. If you are a people pleaser, then sometimes you will do bad things in the name of pleasing others. That is the danger in being a people pleaser. If you grow up in a mafia family or a family of criminals, you will do criminal acts to please your parents or please the rest of your family, and that's a bad idea. So people pleasing can be dangerous in the wrong hands. It is a biased way of dealing with the world. Instead, you should come from integrity. What is right, looking within yourself. What is right is what you should do, not what other people want you to do. That makes you independent of the world, and that independence from the world is a very powerful thing to have. So yes, be less people-pleasing. Be instead a person of integrity who does something because it is right. That is why we should do things. People-pleasing is always a danger there, that you will end up doing wrong things because you want to please people. So the strength will come from within as you develop the path, and eventually you will be able to stop pleasing people too much, but just right instead. Okay, dear Ajahn, in meditation we simply observe the arising and passing of thoughts. Sometimes that's what you do. Number one, yet how do we observe without thinking? Does not even observation involve a subtle effort? Not necessarily, because the idea here is to be present, to be mindful. Yeah, and if you have a mind that is developed in the right way, awareness is something you cannot avoid. You have to be aware. It doesn't take any effort to be aware necessarily. The idea is to sit back and allow things to flow and observe, be with that flow. That's the idea. Yeah, if you are doing anything, you have to have a degree of awareness with that. And here we just allow things to flow and we are conscious of what is going on. So it doesn't have to be any effort involved in that. If there is effort, often we kind of get in the way of things. We control things rather than actually allow them to flow. And that can often be the problem of effort. So the ideal way, you are aware because you have practiced the first factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. They create that awareness, and then you just go with the flow. So in meditation, we simply observe the arising and passing of thoughts. Well, ideally, you observe the arising and passing of the breath. Yeah, that's even better than the thoughts. Okay, so there will be some thoughts. You see them come and pass away. But the idea is that by observing them, they become less. Yeah, if you are aware of the thoughts, they tend to become less because they cannot be sustained in the light or in the sharp awareness of the mind. Yeah, they tend to decrease. Mindfulness tends to reduce the thinking mind. So observation, instead of being subtle effort, sometimes it can be a subtle effort, but it tends to reduce the thinking anyway. Number 2, when sloth and torpor arise in meditation, what is a skillful way to respond? The calm feels so pleasant that I often fall asleep. How can I remain aware without forcing control? When I let go, I fall asleep. Help! So the answer is to enjoy the meditation. Yeah, if you enjoy, don't just feel calm, but it's an enjoyment there, then you tend to stay awake. So the Buddha always talks about developing the factors that lead to energy. If you have problems with tiredness and lethargy, and so you develop the energy, the joy, yeah, these kind of things. That's what gives rise to energy in the mind. Now, one of the important things to understand about the tiredness and lethargy is that usually it is a consequence of the first 2 hindrances, sensual desire and ill will, because these drain the energy from the mind. So very often, if you try to stay awake, but the other 2 hindrances have not been reduced enough, you're actually unable to do that. So very often you have to have more metta, more karuna, reducing the ill will. And the more metta you have, the more energy you have, because metta is a state of energy in the mind. If you have karuna, you have more energy. So sometimes you have to take one step back. Develop more metta first of all, more of that good feeling inside. And that good feeling is equivalent to the states of joy in the mind. Then the joy is there. You will be present because you want to enjoy the joy. Yeah, you want to enjoy the joy. That kind of natural. So you want to enjoy and be happy. So that is kind of where you want to take this. So have the calm, but give more joy to it. And one of the things we were just talking about before was precisely how to give rise to that joy here. So that is the short answer to that question. Sometimes it can take a long time to develop this joyful state, so you have to be very patient with yourself. Dear Ajahn, thank you in advance. Would like to know if the following understanding is correct. Please ignore this sheet if it takes up too much time. Wow, yeah, it's a long one. Okay, we'll see how it goes. This is a reflection based on a recent reading about the Epstein files on sex and human trafficking. Okay. Many of the participants are people who are successful. So, number 1, good karma ripened, we are able to be successful in life or to be born in circumstances. Yes, good karma has ripened in one way. That's exactly right. So these people were successful. They had some kind of good karma. Number 2, unwholesome karma, to come across unwholesome individuals who are involved in unwholesome activity and invites us into them. Can be, you come across some very bad people. It can be the result of bad karma in the past. But sometimes in the human realm you come across all kinds of people. And sometimes it's not so much because of bad karma, but simply because that's the nature of the human realm. You can expect to come across bad people and good people, a bit of both. And so you have to always be circumspect. You don't know who you're going to come across. And sometimes you have to shun or get away from certain people because they are really problematic. So it can be past bad karma, or it can simply be that you are a human being and these people exist there. Latent defilements to cause desire to be involved. So the latent defilements are there, and so you decide to be involved because those defilements come to life when you get into the presence of certain people. I think one thing about the Epstein things is that obviously he was a person with some qualities that made people drawn in by they were drawn in by him. He must have had some personal qualities, maybe very good at praising people or pleasing them or making them feel at ease or whatever. He had some kind of magic about him that all of these people were drawn to him. It's amazing, the kind of people that were drawn to him. There's a very large segments of the tops of the American society and society internationally that were sort of pulled in by him. And this is the danger. Some people can be very magnetic and yet dangerous. And so we have to be very careful in observing people, and knowing who is safe and who is not. Conditioning, once involved and involved often, it becomes habitual and becomes a conditioning for the next life. Yes, it can become a conditioning for the next life, and that's kind of scary, isn't it? 5, impermanence, the cultivation of our past life, due to impermanence, can be destroyed by the actions of this lifetime. Yes? So you may have built up something positive in the past, like a certain degree of wisdom or a certain character traits, and they can go into decline, and they can become worse again. And that's worrying and concerning, right? You take all of this time trying to develop good qualities, and then you mess it all up by hanging out with the wrong people, and then it goes into reverse. And that is one of the reasons why stream entry is such an important point, because at that point there is no reversal anymore. So practice as far as you can in this life to give yourself the best possible position to continue on in the future. Last one, how do we develop and protect the cultivation already done in this lifetime? Is it possible at all? So what you do is you learn as much Dhamma as you possibly can, so that when you get reborn, you hear the Dhamma, you think, wow, I've heard this before somewhere. Maybe in my past life. BGF, I think about BGF, I heard this before, And so you have heard it before, and then you recognize it in your future life. This is actually from the suttas. It says that you get reborn in the Devaloka, and you hear the Devas speak Dhamma, and you recognize it. And of course, the Dhamma that the Devas will speak is the Dhamma of the suttas, not the Dhamma that you read in all kinds of books, but the Dhamma of the suttas, because that is the universal Dhamma. So make that the main thing. The second thing that makes it possible to carry on and to enable you to progress more in the future life is to practice as much as you possibly can in this life. So you have a head start. You already have reached a certain level, and you carry on from that level. The more purified you are, the safer you are from decline in the future. So take this practice as far as you possibly can. And as you do that, you have a good foundation for future practice. Okay, dear Ajahn. Oh, same handwriting. Okay, that's good. Thank you in advance. So both of these are thank you in advance. That's good. That's very kind of you to thank me in advance. So I will thank you in advance as well. Thank you in advance before I read this question. Questions from the lessons on the 20th. I can't remember. What date are we today? 22nd, so a couple of days ago. Okay. So how long does the post-death review take? So usually it apparently happens very, very fast. It happens like in a flash. But time tends to go very slowly, so even though it happens really, really fast, it can feel like a long time. I have met people who have had these kind of experiences, and you see a lot in the flash of time. Where does this review take place? In an intermediate realm between death and the next existence? Yes, that is often when it takes place, or it can take place just as you are about to die. People who have like almost a fatal experience, they almost die, they can have this life review just before they have a very kind of big accident or something like that. If rebirth is immediate, does this review still take place? I think sometimes no. Sometimes your karma is so strong, let's say you attain the jhanas or deep samadhi, and you go straight into a samadhi realm, and there's no need for any life review in that particular case. Number 3, since Buddhists do not believe in souls, what does the review? Your mind does the review. Just like you are reviewing now, if I ask you to review the holiday you went to last time, you can think back to the holiday, and you can think back to various detail. Who reviews that holiday? You review that holiday. Is it just that you is not who you think you are? You are not that solid entity. You are a moving, changeable mind that always goes in different directions. Yes, the same thing does that life review, is the same thing that does the review of your last holiday in this life or whatever it is. Same thing. The problem is the illusion of some essential existence. That is the problem. Finally, coming to today's questions. Fortunately, not as many as yesterday, otherwise we would have another long day. So here we go. Dear Ajahn, how to deal with compassion fatigue? Listening to others' complaints drags us down. There's also the danger of being quoted that we agree or support the complainer. Okay. So, yeah, just listening to other people complaining is not necessarily a good idea. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That can be very tiring, and complaining is not nice. At the very least, when you hear that, you know the danger of complaining. So at least, hopefully, you won't complain. Yeah, because then you understand how terrible it is to hear complaints all the time. One of the great things about people with lots of good qualities, they complain very little. Yeah, it's beautiful to hear people who almost never complain. So it's kind of the wrong kind of compassion. You don't have to sit around listening all the time. Yeah, say, okay, thank you, heard enough, I'm going to go off now. Do it in a nice way. Yeah, don't be harsh. I was being a bit harsh there in the way I said that. But know the right time, know the right place. Yeah, now is not the time for me. Sorry, I'm busy. What are you busy with? Doing nothing. Yeah. That's okay. Buddhist, we are allowed to be busy with doing nothing. Yeah, this is kind of the nice thing about being a Buddhist. And so just make a nice excuse, yeah, like that, and then you don't have to listen. Be compassionate when compassion really is required. When someone is sick, when someone is really suffering in a deep way, yeah, when someone really needs your help, you don't have to sit around with these kind of people all the time, because, as you say, it just drags you down. So find that nice balance somewhere. Dear Ajahn, as someone who works in a noisy environment where people talk all the time, everything feels like idle chatter to me. Can you give some examples of real idle chatter? Everything feels like, yeah, maybe everything is idle chatter. Yeah, a lot of thing is idle chatter, especially if you work in a noisy environment. Yeah, so but idle chatter would be, I don't know, anything that is kind of useless, everything that doesn't have a purpose. So if you are at work and you have to communicate because you have to make the workflow go, then it's okay. Yeah, you have to talk, some things have to be said. But if you go on, like this other person, like complaining a lot, That's kind of idle chat. Actually, it's worse than idle chat. It's also divisive speech at the same time. It's also harsh speech at the same time. But it's also idle chatter. It's all those three kind of combined. Or idle chatter can just be talking excessively. You talk about the holiday you had overseas, and you go on to great length about that. But it may not be all that interesting. It can maybe be nice for you, the holiday, but maybe other people are not so interested. And you often talk about things that are not really all that useful. However, it's also important to be reasonable. It's important to be kind. It's important to feel that we are making an effort to communicate with people and reach out. So a little bit of friendly talk is important. Yeah, how are you? How are you? Sometimes that can be a kind thing to say. Yeah, how are you? Nice to see you again. I wish you a nice day. This is a kind of useful talk that is not necessary, but still it is positive and it gives rise to a good feeling. You're using the talk to create something positive, to be kind to others. If you use talk to be kind, it's never idle chatter. If you talk because you simply like talking and your mind is very busy and you just want to talk, then it's idle chatter. Yeah. So something like that. Dear Ajahn, as we progress along the path of the Dhamma, we often come to see more clearly the unwholesome actions we have done in the past towards others and our parents. This understanding often brings up the sense of guilt and heaviness. Even though we have grown wiser and no longer behave in those ways, the past cannot be undone, especially when those were done out of ignorance. In practice, it is often difficult not to be hard on ourselves or fall into self-blame. While I understand this relates to the teaching of non-self, it still feels difficult to comprehend. How should one skillfully work with this sense of guilt, even though we now have a very loving relationship? Well, you should be so happy that you have understood, yeah? If you did not understand, you would still be doing those bad things. So what a wonderful thing it is. You have progressed. You have become a better person. Yay, I'm a better person than I was in the past. I am moving forward in the Dhamma. I'm learning something new. This is great news. You should be so happy about that. Yeah, this fact that you have changed is actually a wonderful thing for yourself and for the people around you. So be happy. Rejoice in the fact that you are now a better person. Feeling guilty, remember that you were stupid in the past. Stupid people do stupid things. So of course you did stupid things. Yeah, that's what the past was like. And forgive yourself because, why? Because you were conditioned to be that stupid person. You did not decide to be that stupid person. You didn't choose, I want to be stupid so I can do stupid things. No, you were just stupid because of conditioning. Have compassion for yourself. Yeah, you were trapped in that conditioning. You couldn't do things otherwise. And once you start to have that self-compassion, you will also have a lot of compassion to the people around you, because you'll see they are also trapped in the same way. Yeah, you're starting to see how you are conditioned in a very deep sense. Sense of guilt doesn't have any place here. Yeah, you are a victim of your past, a victim of your conditioning, a victim of your habits. That is the reality. You couldn't have been another person. If you could, you would have been a different person. You couldn't, and so you weren't. That's kind of the reality here. So you gradually learn to have self-compassion. But rejoice. Rejoice that you now have a wonderful relationship. Rejoice that you have changed. What a wonderful thing that is. You have grown. Yeah, isn't that great? You should be so happy about that. You're moving away from those unskillful things. Yay, me! Yeah, that is kind of the right kind of attitude. And when you have the yay, me kind of attitude without feeling too proud about it, wow, you're doing really well. So that is what this is about. So it is hard to understand. Non-self is a very profound idea. All of this really comes back to that. But you get the rough idea there of what is happening here. All right. Dear Ajahn, today you spoke about the merits of being generous. I volunteered my time last year to teach a group of young children from low-income families. It was a good experience, but I did not feel elated or uplifted as the suttas advised. What would I have done wrong? How can I find more joy through giving? It is quite, this is something that kind of grows over time. You have to learn to give in such a way that it gives rise to joy. Yeah? So you do this, you begin in this particular way. Don't expect to gain joy straight away. Do it initially just by testing it out, trying the waters. Where do you feel inspired to give? Where would you like to help out? How can I be more generous in a good way? Be generous in a broad kind of ways. Be generous in your speech. How can I make my speech a gift to other people? How can I say things that will make other people feel happy and feel good in my presence? How can I do little acts of service, small acts of service that are helpful in the world? All of these things are ways of being generous. Turn your life into a whole a series of acts of service. Your whole life becomes an act of service to others. And then you start to understand the power in these things. And sometimes you will feel very inspired. Sometimes you'll suddenly, little sparks will start to happen and you start to feel something inside is changing because you're doing the right kind of thing. Don't expect individual things like this necessarily to give you that joy straight away. Imbue your acts of generosity with more compassion, more love, more friendliness, more kindness. As you imbue it with more of the good kind of motivation, it becomes a more powerful kind of generosity and it gives better results. The more we imbue it with a good motivation, the more powerful it's going to be. So keep on going. Keep on going. Deepen this whole thing, and over time you will get to the point where this will start to happen for you. Dear Ajahn, in the Buddhist tradition, aspiring monks and nuns must obtain permission from their parents. This is a sensitive question. You may choose not to answer. Okay. Did you obtain permission from both your parents to become a monk? Whoa. I did actually, but in the country where I come from, if you are the child and you ask your parents for permission, the parents don't normally say no. This would be, even though my parents didn't want me to become a monk, and they didn't, they would say, okay, whatever is best for you, if that's what you want to do, okay, you can do it. Because that's kind of how the culture in Norway is. If your parents would never really say no, unless you say, may I become a criminal, okay, they might say no in that case. But if you have a decent reason for what you're doing, they wouldn't say no. It's just not how that society works. At least not people that I am aware of. So I did ask, and it was easy enough. Number 2, if only one of the parents got permission, why the other one not? Is it still possible to become a monk or nun, or must wait until both parents have passed away? So it depends. If parents don't give permission, usually that was done in ancient India in a certain context of the larger family, and they required their children to maybe help out, especially when they were young children. It was they were novices, you needed the parents' permission, and then it was taken in also to be part of the ordination process when you become a fully ordained monk or not just a samanera or novice. So how important is it? Is it necessary in the modern world compared to ancient India? Now, one of the things is that even though you are supposed to do it, if you don't ask your parents for permission, it does not invalidate the ordination ceremony. So if you get ordained, even though your parents say no, it's still a valid ordination. There are certain things that invalidate the ordination ceremony, but this does not. And so if you have a chat with your teacher, whoever is going to be your acharya, and maybe you have particularly difficult parents. Some parents can be really difficult. Some parents are not even nice to their children, right? Then there may be circumstances where the teacher decides, okay, even though your parents don't give permission, in this case it doesn't matter because your parents are just too difficult. They cannot be talked sense into your parents. I remember there was one parent once who sensed that The son wanted to become a monk, and the father said, it is better for you to become a drug addict than to become a monk. And so he said, okay, no need to listen to your parents. Yeah, forget about those parents, they are unreasonable. Yeah, so you play it a little bit by ear, and you see the circumstances like that, and that's kind of how you work. But ideally, you get permission. Ideally, you go to your parents and you say, Mum and Dad, this is really important to me. I'm not doing this to upset you. I'm not doing this for the wrong kind of reason. This is what life is about as far as I'm concerned. Please give me the right to go forward. This is what my life is about. And if you have reasonable parents, they will say yes. Yeah, how can your parents say no to someone who has a genuine aspiration to do something beautiful in their life? Tell your parents, okay, come and let's go and have a chat with Ajahn Brahm, and see what he says. And then hopefully he will kind of mellow your parents down a bit, and then afterwards you can go forth easily. Something like that. I have good news. Last question for today. It's good news for me anyway. So Dear Ajahn, I agree the importance of kindness to promote a safe, loving, harmony environment. However, the Asian culture practice that harsh, tough love. Kindly please advise how to deal and cope with the toxic and stressful, abusive, tough love. Thank you, Ajahn. I think in Asia, it's probably just like in the West. There are some parents that are more into tough love, some are more into gentle love. I mean, it's, all societies are very varied. It depends. Not every mum is a tiger mum, right? There are some non-tiger mums. There are some teddy bear fathers and soft mums, and it's a lot of variety in there. But in my personal opinion, the most important thing that we can give our children is love, because love creates resilience. Love creates someone who feels good about themselves. Love creates a person who is ready to face the world because they feel solid inside. So I would counsel all parents, give your children a lot of love, soft, gentle, kind love. They feel good about themselves. They have a character where they can deal with the external things in the world. You may give them a lot of tough love, but that doesn't make them feel good within. It just makes them do things, that you want them to do. But it's not really about you. It's about your children. So give them an upbringing whereby they can face the world in a better way. That, I think, is the most important thing. What can you do if you have parents who are very difficult and harsh? Then that is kind of your karma, I suppose, maybe. Or maybe it is not your karma, maybe you're just unlucky with your parents, I don't know. This is part of samsara. So the only way to really get out of that is not to be reborn, unfortunately. That is the only way out. If you get reborn, you may very well have a tiger mum in your next life as well, And she will tell you, work harder, I want straight A's only. I got only straight A's, not good enough. Now you have to do this and that. Okay, no, still not good enough, do more. And you are never good enough, in those kind of relationships. And if you are never good enough, it makes you feel inadequate and insecure within. And we should not create children who are inadequate and insecure. We should create children who are secure and who feel good and who feel a sense of self-worth. That is the kind of children we should create. They will be able to face the world in a good way. It doesn't mean we should never be tough. Sometimes you have to tell them, don't do bad things, treat people well, like we saw in the sutta before. So we should point things out, but we should do it with kindness, with metta and compassion. Then we will do, in my opinion anyway, the right thing about with our children. It's easy for me to say, right? I don't have any children, I don't know what I would be like as a parent. Maybe I would be a really harsh parent. I don't know. So I'm actually quite happy I don't have that problem. Anyway, so it has been quite a long day already. So let's call it a day. Let's just finish off as we usually do by paying homage to the Triple Gem. Before we do that, I wish you all a very good night's rest, and we'll see you back again tomorrow morning.